I never expected the warmth in my chest to bloom like that again. I thought those days were long behind me when a glance could steal the air from my lungs, but then there he was before the story begins. Please like the video and subscribe as it helps me a lot. His eyes, familiar yet grown, held something I wasn't ready for, something gentle, watchful, and unsettling in a way I couldn't explain. I knew that look, I'd seen it in stories and memories, even in mirrors once upon a time, and yet to feel it directed at me from him, it rewrote the quiet rhythm I had been living in. It started subtly like the hum of a forgotten song I had known Evan since he was a boy, a child full of laughter and questions, wide-eyed wonder and scraped knees. But time with its quiet hands had shaped him, was no longer the boy who used to leave his soccer shoes in the hallway. He stood tall now, shoulders stronger, voice deeper, and gaze more deliberate. There was care in how he looked at me, not out of obligation or politeness, but something more. At first I ignored it, telling myself it was my imagination, but hearts, no matter how disciplined, recognize when they're being seen. One rainy afternoon we found ourselves alone in the kitchen. The others had gone out and the house was wrapped in that calm hush that follows a storm. He leaned on the counter watching me slice strawberries, his quiet presence filling the space. You always cut them the same way, he said with a soft smile. I looked up, caught off guard. Habit, I suppose, he chuckled. No, I mean it's nice you do everything with intention. There was a pause, just silence and the faint tapping of rain on the windows. His eyes didn't leave mine, and for a second too long I forgot how to breathe properly. He looked away first, clearing his throat. Sorry, that probably sounded weird. Not at all, I said, returning to the strawberries even though my hands weren't entirely steady. It's thoughtful. From that moment something shifted. It wasn't dramatic, not loud or obvious, but it was there in the lingering of his eyes when I entered a room, in the way his voice softened when we talked, and it stirred something in me I hadn't felt in a long time. First I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just admiration or a phase, but feelings once awakened don't easily go back to sleep. Over the weeks small moments stacked like secret notes between us. He'd sit with me in the evenings, sometimes in silence, other times sharing stories of school or music or memories of his late mother. There was a depth in him I hadn't seen before, a vulnerability that made him seem both older and more tender than I had expected. He told me how hard it had been when she passed, how he never really opened up to anyone else after that. You make it feel easier, he said once, not quite looking at me. Being around you, it's like it's okay to feel things. And he didn't know how to respond. My heart ached for him, but there was also this quiet pull I couldn't name, a closeness that felt both gentle and dangerously comforting. One evening the power went out. We lit candles, casting shadows that danced across the living room walls. We sat on the floor with a deck of cards, the mood oddly calm, wrapped in the hush of candlelight and closeness. Do you ever miss the person you used to be? He said suddenly, watching the flame flicker between us. I glanced at him, surprised by the question. Sometimes, Booty, think we all change in ways we never planned. He nodded slowly. You still seem like you, just softer. I let out a breath, unsure if that was meant to comfort me or reveal something deeper. You notice more than you let on, I said quietly. He gave a half smile. Only when it matters. That night something in the air lingered long after the lights came back on. I couldn't sleep. His words played on repeat in my mind, weaving around the subtle way he looked at me, kindness in his voice, the way he seemed to see past what everyone else missed. The next day I caught him staring again, this time not in a way that needed to be hidden. It was open, intentional, and for the first time I didn't look away. I found myself remembering things he'd said, the way his voice dipped when he was nervous, how he always noticed the smallest details, like when I wore a new scarf or changed the way I tied my hair. There was thoughtfulness in every glance. Every word made me feel noticed, not just as a presence in the room, but as a person, woman. We never spoke of what lingered in the silence between us. Beauty grew, unspoken things often do when we brushed past each other in the hallway, when our fingers accidentally touched, reaching for the same bowl. There was something just under the surface, an awareness, electric and undeniable. One afternoon I was out tending the garden. Evan came out with a glass of lemonade, handing it to me. Without a word I took it, brushing his fingers, and that moment held longer than it should have. You always take care of everyone else, he said softly, standing close enough that I could feel his warmth. Who takes care of you? I blinked, my throat tightening with something I hadn't expected. That question undid something in me. I looked at him, and for a second everything fell away. The years, the titles, the expectations. I don't know, I whispered. Reached out, then not touching me but hovering close as if waiting for permission that neither of us could give. His eyes searched mine, and in that gaze was everything. He wasn't saying affection, worry, admiration, something deeper. We stood like that, the breeze moving around us, the world quiet. Later that night I replayed that moment over and over, not because of what was said but because of what wasn't. His presence stayed with me even in sleep, lingering like a dream I didn't want to wake from. Days passed and I started noticing things I had tried to ignore, the way my heart lifted when I heard his voice, the way the house felt warmer when he was near. I began to wonder, how long had this been growing quietly between us? Had I missed it because I was too busy pretending it calmed be there? I found myself dressing with more care, wearing that soft shade he once complimented. I caught him glancing, always looking away too quickly. We were both dancing around something that neither of us dared to name. Then came the evening that changed everything. Family dinner, laughter, conversation, candles. He sat across from me, and in the soft light I saw it again, his eyes not guarded this time but open, honest. There was admiration there, but something else do something unspoken but felt so deeply it stole my breath. Later, after everyone had gone to bed, I stayed behind to clean up. He returned quietly, helping gather dishes. We didn't say much, the silence full and meaningful as I turned to put away the last glass. I felt him behind me, close but not touching. His voice came low, barely a whisper. Do you ever think about what it might be like if things were different? I turned slowly, heart fluttering, trying to steady my breath. Eyes met his, held so much longing, hesitation, quiet hope. I try not to, I admitted, but sometimes I can't help it. Nodded, the silence thick with everything that could not be spoken, and in that moment something shifted, not with words, not with actions, but with understanding. We didn't cross any lines, we didn't need to. The bond between us was growing, delicate, undeniable, and quietly beautiful, and as I walked up the stairs that night I knew that nothing between us would ever be quite the same again. After that night I found myself moving through the house with an awareness I couldn't explain. Evan's presence filled spaces even when he wasn't in them, his quiet glances, his thoughtful gestures, the way he lingered in doorways just a little longer than necessary. There was no turning back from the shift between us. We hadn't crossed any lines, not in action, not in words, but hearts don't need permission to feel, and mine was already speaking in ways I couldn't silence. The morning after, the light felt different, softer, more intimate somehow. I stood at the sink, my hands resting on the edge, eyes fixed on the garden outside. The sunlight poured in, golden and quiet, and I could still feel the weight of his gaze from the night before. He came down the stairs with that usual ease of his, the one that used to seem so casual but now felt loaded with me. And Angie turned slightly, offering him a small smile. He returned it, tentative but real. Did you sleep well? I asked, my voice lighter than it felt inside. He nodded, reaching for the kettle. Not really. I kept thinking I didn't ask about what Weboth knew. Still, the room didn't feel heavy. It felt like something precious was growing in the quiet between us, something neither of us wanted to disturb. We fell into our routine again, me working from home, him helping around the house between college projects, but now the air between us was charged with something gentle yet intense. The way he brushed past me while passing plates, how our hands lingered a second too long when sharing a book or folding laundry together. It all meant more than it used to. One evening a sudden summer rainstorm rolled in. The sky turned a velvety gray and thunder rumbled low and distant. Lit candles again, the soft glow dancing along the walls. He came into the living room where I sat curled up with a blanket. You always make rainy days feel cozy, he said, sitting across from me. I looked at him, my heart doing that strange flutter. It had become accustomed to. Maybe it's because I've always liked the rain, it slows everything down. Makisis notice more. He nodded, thoughtful. I've noticed a lot lately. I swallowed hard. Me too. There was a pause, a heartbeat off, silence that stretched just long enough to feel like it mattered. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Do you ever feel like there's something right in front of you but you're not supposed to? And his words weren't loud but they echoed inside me. I met his eyes and I didn't look away. Yes, more than I'd Lakito admit. His breath hitched almost imperceptibly. I keep trying to pretend that it's just admiration or a phase, but it's not going away. Neither. Ophis moved. The rain fell heavier now, tapping against the windows like a rhythm echoing my own heartbeat. You didn't have to say anything, he added quickly. I know how it sounds, I just can't keep it inside anymore. I stood, wrapping the blanket tighter around Miss Holders, needing to move to think. A walk to the window, staring out into the blur of rain and memory. I never thought I'd feel seen again, I said softly. Not like this, not by you. He stood too, staying a respectful distance but close enough that I could feel the warmth of his presence. I never expected it either, he said, but I'm not going to apologize for it. Care about you not in the way I used to, and it's not just a passing thought. You matter to me more than I know how to say. My heart felt like it was both breaking and blooming all at once. Every boundary it built in my mind now felt like paper against a wind too strong. I turned to face him, my voice quiet. This, whatever this is, it's not simple, I know, he said, but maybe the best things aren't. The rain softened outside, becoming more of a whisper than a roar. In that moment I felt a strange sense of clarity. I wasn't confused, I wasn't afraid, I was simply present, and that felt more honest than anything had in a long time. We didn't need to label what was growing between us. It didn't demand declarations or promises, just was. That night as I lay in bed I thought of all the ways the heart surprises us, how it leads us down paths we never planned, how it finds beauty in unexpected places. In the days that followed things didn't go back to the way they were, and we didn't pretend they did. Evan and I found comfort in the ordinary moments that suddenly carried deeper meaning. Quiet dinners, shared books, long walks around the neighborhood. Every word, every glance held the echo of the truth we hadn't yet spoken aloud but both knew deeply. One evening while we sat outside under a sky slowly turning from dusk to night, he handed me a cup of tea he'd made just the way I liked it. You always remember the little things, I said, smiling softly. I remember everything when it comes to you, he replied, voice low. I looked at him then, not as someone I used to see as a child needing care, but as a man who had quietly grown into someone who saw me, who listened, who noticed the person he was beneath the layers of routine and responsibility. Whatever this is, he whispered, it's not nothing. His hand rested lightly beside mine on the bench, not touching, just there, steady, open. I'll wait for however long it takes, he said. You don't have to rush toward it. I'm not going anywhere. Me chest ached with something tender and real. I looked at him, this boy who had once just been a name in family conversations, and saw someone who had quietly become part of my heart in a way that defied logic and expectation. We sat there in the dark, stars peeking through the night Sky saying nothing more. The moment didn't need words, it was already full with emotion, with promise, with a quiet understanding that sometimes the most unexpected stories are the ones that stay with us the longest. And in that silence I found something I hadn't known I was searching for, peace, a sense that maybe, just maybe, the heart always knows the